Good day, I am Mary Ann H. Tyson from BSED Major in English, Section 1A. For today's video, I am going to tackle or discuss the given questions with their corresponding answers, and so expound the essence of language. To start, these are the following questions to be discussed later. But before we answer these questions, let us first define language.
Language is a finite system of elements and principles that make it possible for speakers to construct sentence to do a particular communicative job. With that being said, we can now proceed in answering the prepared question. Question number 1. How language contributes to human leverage or advantage compared to other species? Well, humans' capacity for self-awareness and abstract thought is facilitated by language.
It contributes the ability to transfer complex informations, discuss, share feelings, and ideas of events and possible outcomes of alternative actions.
Compared to other species, humans are capable to distinguish sounds and perceive differences among sounds. Moreover, use sounds in systems which could communicate meaning.
To conclude, language is the single most advantageous evolutionary adaptation of the human species. Moving forward, understanding and differentiating the different properties of language.
Question number 2. Differentiate the different properties of language from one another. Modularity, constituency, recursion, discreteness, productivity, arbitrariness, reliance on context, and variability.
Here we have the 8 properties of language, namely modularity, constituency, recursion, discreteness, productivity, arbitrariness, reliance on context, and variability. So let's start on modularity.
Modularity is a language as a modular system and uses a set of component subsystems in a coordinated way.
As per neurolinguistics, studies show that the different aspects of language processing and dividing language into modules facilitates linguistic analysis greatly.
Some modules have been central to linguistics for a long time. This includes phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, lexicon, semantics, and discourse, which has been recognized by most linguists as another important subsystem of language.
Mainly, phonetics is the production and interpretation of speech sounds. Phonology studies the organization of raw phonetics in language, in general and individual languages. For morphology, the study of structure within words. Syntax, the study of structure of sentences. Lexicon, it is the repository of linguistic elements with their meanings and structural properties. Semantics, the detailed analysis. And last but not the least is discourse. It is an organization of language above and beyond the sentence. And this provides effectivity and modularity, which is one of the properties of language.
Next is constituency. It is a language organized into constituents, allowing more complex units to enter structures where simple ones are also possible.
Constituents gives language a balance of structure and flexibility. It can be replaced by other constituents, but can't be replaced with a series of words that is not a constituent. Moreover, it can also be moved, but can only move with a complete constituent.
On the other hand, recursion allows grammatical processes to be applied repeatedly, combining constituents to produce an infinite variety of sentences of indefinite length, and allows someone to expand a short sentence.
Recursiveness has a profound implications, meaning no one can learn a language by memorizing all the sentences of that language. But recursiveness is capable of producing and understanding an infinite numbers of sentences.
Discreteness is the range of sounds that human beings can make is continuous. Discrete varies from one language to another, but all languages have the property of discreteness.
Language is composed of separate sounds, words, sentences, and other utterance units. The fact that we hear speech as a sequence of individual sound, words, and sentences, then it reveals discreteness.
Productivity. It comes from more than just the ability of speaker to coin new words.
Productivity is one way in which languages change to meet the changing communicative needs of the speakers.
Next in line is we have arbitrariness. It perceives sounds through the arbitrary or sound filters of the respective language. Mainly, the sounds used in English are not all the same as the sounds needed to speak other languages.
Likewise, the principles of one language for arranging words are inherently no better or worse than those of another.
Reliance on context is not just figuring out the meaning of words, but interpreting the meaning of the entire utterances. It is the sentence that depends crucially on the context in which it is uttered. Down to the last property of language, variability. It allows people to communicate far more than the semantic content of words and sentences they utter. The variability of language is indexical.
Moreover, speakers vary the language they use to signal their social identities and to define the immediate speech situations. And those are the differences of the 8 properties of language. Finally, down to question number 3. Responding on what the line means and stating the reason for agreeing and disagreeing.
Question number 3. What does this line mean? Language varieties differ because over time they have adapted to the differing needs of their speech communities. Each language does these things differently. The dominant group perceived to have higher status at the less powerful groups are stigmatized as incorrect or bad. Do you agree or disagree about this statement? Language varieties differ because over time they have adapted to the differing needs of their speech communities. Each language does these things differently. Yes, I agree for a reason that language is everywhere and comes into different variations in different communities.
Some communities have different languages and that they do have different ways on applying it depending on its nature of language.
Some languages morphologically mark several verb tenses, which English marks only 2. Some organize nouns into many, like gender, categories which English does not. Each language is equally functional at meeting the communicative needs of its own speech community.
It differs on how they use language in their own speech community.
However, I disagree in the line the dominant group perceived to have higher status and the less powerful groups are stigmatized as incorrect or bad, simply because it differs from their own. Similarly, linguists take language as they find it, rather than attempting to regulate it in the direction of preconceived criteria.
As what mentioned above, language does things differently, and less powerful groups are not an exemption. Alright, there you have it. I hope it enriches your mind and hit important ideas and aspects of language in each questions. Again, my name is Mariana H. Saison from BSAD Major in English, Section 1A. Thank you and goodbye.